What if a chocolate chip cookie saved a life? What if a 10-year-old girl saw the one thing every adult missed, and it changed everything? What if a last-minute flight change became the reason someone's still breathing today? Sounds like a movie, doesn't it? But this isn't make-believe. Every twist, every moment you're about to hear is real. And it all begins with a cookie and a secret no one saw coming. This happened on a Tuesday morning at O'Hare Airport. It was a morning that started like any other, with passengers rushing around, delayed flights, and everyone glued to their phones. But hidden in that everyday chaos was an extraordinary miracle waiting to happen. There was a successful CEO who had forgotten how to feel. There was his 8-year-old daughter who could see emotions as colors. And there was a young woman at the airport not to catch a flight, but to say goodbye to the world forever. None of them knew they were about to become part of something that would challenge everything you think you know about strangers, kindness, and the power of paying attention. By the time I finish this story, you'll never look at a stranger crying the same way again. You'll understand why a small decision can ripple across the universe in ways we never imagine. And you might discover that the person sitting next to you right now needs you more than you know. So sit tight, because this is the story of how 3 broken people found each other in the most unexpected place, and how 12 hours changed the course of 3 lives forever. It was 6:30 a.m. at Chicago O'Hare Airport. The terminal was bathed in that soft golden light that only shows up at dawn. Flight announcements echoed through the vast space, and passengers hurried by with their rolling suitcases and coffee cups. In the midst of this organized chaos, Matthew Lane, 41 years old, dressed neatly in a charcoal gray suit, was sitting and checking his watch for the 3rd time in 2 minutes. Matthew is the CEO of an educational software company, a man who's built his life around precision, schedules, and control. The 7:15 flight to Chicago, he muttered to himself, opening his laptop. 40 minutes. Perfect timing. But Matthew wasn't always this rigid. 2 years ago, his wife Sarah lost her battle with cancer. The grief nearly destroyed him. So Matthew did what a lot of people do when the pain becomes unbearable. He buried it. He threw himself into work, schedules, anything. With her gentle eyes and a special gift hurt doesn't ask him to feel. Sitting next to him was his 8-year-old daughter, Amelia. She had her mother's gentle eyes and a special gift that Matthew didn't quite understand. You see, Amelia could sense other people's emotions like most of us see colors. She called it seeing emotions, and she saw them as real colors surrounding people. That morning, Amelia wasn't looking at her iPad like most kids. Instead, her attention was fixed on something across the terminal waiting area. "Dad," she said softly, not taking her eyes off what had caught her interest. "What's up, sweetie?" Matthew replied automatically, still typing on his keyboard. "There's someone over there who's gray." Matthew stopped typing. "What do you mean, gray?" "There's a woman sitting by herself. She's surrounded by gray. Actually, it's dark gray." Matthew looked up from his screen and followed his daughter's gaze. Across the waiting area, he saw a young woman sitting alone. She was hunched over a sketchbook. And even from this distance, he could see she was crying. That woman was Claire Jennings, 25 years old, a street artist and illustrator from New York. What Matthew and Amelia didn't know was that Claire was heading home to pack up her father's apartment. Her father, the last family she had died in a car accident just a week ago. But to understand how a cookie could save a life, we need to meet the people who made this miracle happen. And it all starts with a father who spent 2 years running from his own heart. Matthew glanced at the woman, then back at his daughter. "Sweetie, we don't know her, and we have to catch our flight." But Amelia wasn't listening. There was something in her 8-year-old heart that adult logic couldn't explain. She stood up, making her dad worry. "Amelia, sit down. We need to board soon." But Amelia was already walking across the terminal. Matthew watched in a mix of horror and fascination as his daughter approached this complete stranger. He quickly closed his laptop and followed, ready to apologize for any intrusion. Amelia reached Claire and sat in the empty seat next to her without saying a word. She opened her little backpack and pulled out a wrapped cookie, part of the snacks Matthew had packed for their trip. She gently placed it on the small table in front of Claire. Claire looked up, her eyes red and puffy from crying. She saw the little girl with braids and a kind smile, offering her a cookie like it was the most natural thing in the world. "I don't like seeing people cry alone," Amelia said simply. Those words hit Claire like a gentle wave. "How old are you?" Claire asked quietly, just like a whisper. "I'm 8 years old. How old are you?" 25, Claire replied. "And for the first time that week?" She almost smiled. "Thank you for the cookie." Matthew moved closer, feeling awkward and unsure. "She only likes people who are sad." Claire looked up at this well-dressed man with kind eyes. "It's okay. She's really cute. By the way, I'm Matthew Lane, and this is Amelia." "Claire," she replied, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. "Claire Jennings." There was a moment of silence. Airport announcements kept going in the background. People rushed by. But in this little corner of the terminal, something important was unfolding. Amelia was still studying Claire with the sharp eyes of an 8-year-old. "The gray is fading," she announced. Matthew looked confused, but Claire seemed to understand somehow. Matthew didn't know that in the next 30 seconds, his 8-year-old daughter was about to teach him the most important lesson of his life, because sometimes the wisest words come from the smallest voices. Matthew checked his watch again. "Amelia, we really need to get to our gate. They're about to start boarding." Amelia looked at her dad, then at Claire, then back at her dad. "Dad, she needs someone today." "Sweetie, we have an important meeting in Chicago. Remember, we can't miss the flight." But Amelia's next words stopped Matthew in his tracks. "When Mom died, I needed someone too, but you didn't let anyone get close to us." The truth in those words hit Matthew hard. He remembered the dark days after Sarah's funeral. He remembered the kind friends and family who tried to help, and how he politely but firmly turned down every offer. He was so focused on being strong for Amelia that he forgot strength sometimes means accepting help. He looked at Claire, really seeing her for the first time. He saw the sketchbook on her lap, a half-finished portrait of an older man. He saw the pain in her posture, the way she was holding herself together by the thinnest threads, somehow understanding something about and then he saw his daughter, this amazing little girl who somehow understood something about human connections that he had forgotten. Matthew took a deep breath. "Amelia, what if we take a later flight?" Amelia's face lit up. "Really, there's an evening flight to Chicago. We'd get home late, but we'd still have time to help." Matthew looked at Claire. "Would you like to join us? We'd grab breakfast before the flight, but if you want to come with us." Claire looked up at this stranger, this father and daughter who had appeared in her darkest moment like guardian angels. "I don't want to impose." "You're not imposing," Matthew said, and he meant it. "Sometimes we all need someone." He pulled out his phone and called the airline. "Hello, I need to change my flight from the 7:15 to Chicago to an evening departure." As Matthew rearranged his carefully planned schedule, Amelia took Claire's hand. "The gray is definitely fading," she whispered, and that decision to stay, to care, to listen was about to uncover secrets that would reveal just how close they had come to tragedy. Because Claire's sketchbook held more than just drawings. The airport cafe was almost empty at that hour. Matthew, Amelia, and Claire sat around a small round table with steaming coffee cups and a hot chocolate between them. The morning light poured through the windows, creating an almost sacred atmosphere around their conversation. "What are you drawing?" Amelia asked, peering at Claire's sketchbook with genuine curiosity. Claire hesitated for a moment, then opened the sketchbook to the page she was working on. It's a detailed portrait of a man in his 50s with kind eyes and a gentle smile. But something's still missing. The eyes aren't quite finished. "That's my dad," Claire said softly. Matthew looked at the drawing. "That's beautiful. You're really talented. I can't quite finish his eyes," Claire continued, her voice starting to tremble. "I'm trying, but I can't remember exactly what his eyes looked like when he smiled. Isn't that terrible? I've lived with him for 25 years, and I can't remember his eyes." Tears started falling again, landing on the paper. Amelia reached across the table and, gently, touched Claire's hand. "He remembers who they are. He's just too sad to see them clearly." The wisdom in those words from an 8-year-old made both adults pause. "How do you know that?" Claire asked. "Because when I try to remember my mom's voice, Sometimes I can't hear it, but then when I don't try too hard, I can hear her singing to me." Matthew felt a tightness in his chest. He had never heard Amelia talk about her mom's voice before. "What happened to your mom?" Claire looked at the little girl in surprise. "What happened to your mom? She got sick and went to heaven. Dad doesn't like to talk about it much." Matthew shifted uncomfortably. "Amelia, it's okay. Honey, Claire understands about losing family." Claire nodded. "I do. He's the only family I had left. He passed away in a car accident last week." Those words hung in the air. Matthew felt a familiar tightness in his chest, the feeling that he had been running from for 2 years. "Everyone keeps telling me that time will heal, that everything will get easier," Claire continued. "But I don't understand why. He was everything to me. My closest friend, my mentor, my biggest supporter, and now I'm completely alone." But behind Claire's quiet gratitude, there was a harsh truth that, when it finally came out, would change how everyone understood the importance of this moment. Because sometimes the people we think we're helping are actually saving us. Matthew looked at Claire, and for the first time in 2 years, he allowed himself to really see someone else's pain instead of running from it. "I know a thing or two about being alone," he said quietly. Claire looked up at him. "You do. When Sarah, my wife, died, I thought the best thing I could do for Amelia was to be strong. No crying, no breaking down, no letting anyone see how lost I was." Amelia was listening intently to her dad, hearing him talk about her mom in a way he never had before. "But the truth is," Matthew continued, "I wasn't strong. I was scared of feeling that pain, scared of falling apart, scared of letting Amelia see me out of control." He paused, looking at his daughter. "I didn't realize that by trying to protect you from my pain, I was also shielding you from my love." Amelia's eyes welled up with tears. "Dad, I want to cry with you. I want to talk about Mom, but you always change the subject." Matthew felt something crack inside his chest. Because you miss Mom, but also because you miss her. Even though she's right there, she feels so far away. The honesty in his daughter's words opened something in Matthew that he'd kept locked up for 2 years. Tears started rolling down his face, the first he'd allowed since Sarah's funeral. Claire watched this father and daughter having the conversation they should have had 2 years ago, and she felt something shift in her own heart. "Your dad loves you so much," Claire said to Amelia. "Sometimes adults don't know how to show love when they're hurting." "I know," Amelia said simply. "That's why your colors are mixed up, but they're getting clearer now." Matthew looked at his daughter through his tears. "You've been seeing my emotions all along, haven't you?" Amelia nodded. "You have gray too, Dad, but not as dark as Claire's. Yours has a bit of blue." "What does blue mean?" Claire asks. "Green means love is hiding." Amelia explains it practically. "This is the moment when years of buried suffering finally shatter, free at last. When a father and daughter have the conversation they should have had 2 years ago. But their healing is about to be interrupted by someone who represents everything wrong in our disconnected world. That moment is interrupted by a loud, agitated voice from the customer service counter nearby. "I booked this flight 3 weeks ago. I have an important meeting at 10 hours. This is completely unacceptable. And now, I'm completely alone." They all turned to look at a man in an expensive but wrinkled suit arguing with an airline employee. This is Trent Maddox, 35 years old, and clearly, he's having a really bad morning. Trent's eyes scanned the terminal and stopped at Matthew, Amelia, and Claire sitting at their table. Something in his expression showed he was putting 2 and 2 together. He steps over to their table, his face flushed with anger. "Excuse me," he says, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "I don't suppose one of you is the passenger who decided to switch flights at the last minute." Matthew looks up calmly. "I changed my booking. Yes. Is there a problem? Is there a problem? Yes. Is there a problem? Yes. And now, I'm completely alone." Trent's voice rose. "I have the most important meeting in my career in 3 hours, and now I'm stuck on hold." "Because of your personal matter," Claire started to stand up. "Sit down," Trent snapped at her. "Let me guess. A family emergency." "Family emergency. Relationship drama. Someone's feelings got hurt. The cruelty in his voice makes Amelia shrink back toward her dad. Matthew stands up, his protective instincts fully activated. "Sir, I think you need to calm down." "Calm down." Trent laughs bitterly. "Do you have any idea what you've done? The world doesn't stop for everyone's emotional issues. Some of us have real responsibilities." He points at Claire. "People like her cry in airports over whatever personal crisis they're having. You're all so selfish. Life is tough for everyone. Deal with it privately instead of making it everyone else's problem." His words hit Claire like physical blows. She's already fragile, doubting her worth. And this stranger's verbal attack threatens to shatter what's left of her strength. But before Matthew can react, or Claire can run away, another voice joins the conversation. "Enough." Just when it seems cruelty might win over kindness, a voice emerges from the shadows. Someone who's been watching everything unfold. Someone who understands what's truly at stake. What he reveals next will soothe the anger and expose the real miracle happening right in front of them. That voice belongs to Arthur Bell, a 68-year-old man sitting nearby quietly reading a newspaper. He's been observing the whole interaction, and now he stands up with the quiet dignity of someone who's known real loss. "I said enough," Arthur repeats, looking straight at Trent. "Oh, great. Another one," Trent mutters. "Hey, old man, this doesn't concern you." Arthur slowly steps toward the group. His movements are deliberate, and there's something in his presence that commands attention. "Actually, it does concern me," Arthur says softly. "I've been sitting here since 500 this morning, watching everything that's happened." He looks at Trent with steady eyes. "I've seen an 8-year-old girl notice something you completely missed. I've seen a father learn to feel again. And I've seen a young woman drowning find a lifeline." "What are you talking about?" Trent asks. Arthur turns to Claire, his expression incredibly gentle. "Young lady, I recognize that look in your eyes. I've seen it in the mirror." Claire looks up at him, something in his voice cutting through her shame and fear. 30 years ago," Arthur continues, "my wife died in a car accident. I sat alone in the hospital waiting room for 8 hours. Hundreds of people passed by me, doctors, nurses, visitors, patients. Not a single one stopped to ask if I was okay. The terminal seems to grow quieter around them. I went home to an empty house that night, and I seriously considered ending my pain for good." Claire holds her breath. "The only thing that stopped me was a call from my 6-year-old neighbor's daughter. She'd heard the sirens earlier and wanted to make sure I was okay. A 6-year-old showed me more compassion than any adult did that entire day." Arthur looks at Amelia. "Today, I witnessed this little girl do what that child did for me 30 years ago. She saw someone in pain and acted out of pure love." He turns back to Trent. "Want to know what's wrong with the world? It's not that people show too much emotion. It's that people like you think kindness is weakness and compassion is an inconvenience." Trent's anger fades under Arthur's steady gaze. This man, Arthur gestures toward Matthew, changed his flight because his daughter reminded him what it means to be human. That little girl saw what you couldn't. Sometimes, being there for a stranger is the most important thing you can do. He looks straight at Claire. "And you, dear, you're not a burden. You're not an inconvenience. You're a person in grief. And there's no shame in that." Has created a sacred silence in Arthur's words, have created a sacred silence in the bustling airport terminal. But what he's about to reveal will show everyone present that they've just witnessed something far more significant than a random act of kindness. They've witnessed the fragile line between life and death. Arthur looks straight at Claire, his eyes full of understanding and compassion. "Sweetheart," he says gently, "I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me." Claire looks at him, somehow knowing this man sees her more clearly. Then she sees herself. "When you came to the airport this morning, were you planning to go home?" The question hangs in the air. Matthew and Amelia don't grasp its weight, but Claire does. Her eyes fill with fresh tears. "I had a ticket to Chicago," she whispers. "That's not what I asked." Arthur says kindly but firmly, "Were you planning to go home?" Claire's composure finally breaks completely. The truth spills out through her tears. "I'm not going to Chicago to clear out my dad's apartment." To the bridge where he proposed. I'm going to the bridge where he proposed to my mom. She can't finish the sentence, but she doesn't need to. Everyone understands. Matthew feels the blood drain from his face. Amelia, with her extraordinary intuition, somehow grasps the severity of what's being revealed. The gray around you is so dark because you're planning to turn gray forever, Amelia says softly. Claire nods, tears streaming down her face. I had it all planned out. I wrote letters, arranged to have my apartment cleared. I thought no one would really miss me. Arthur nods with the understanding of someone who's stood on that edge. But then this little angel sat down next to you and gave you a cookie, and her dad changed his flight, Claire continues. And for the first time in a week, someone treated me like I mattered. Matthew is struggling to process what he's hearing. The innocent compassion of his daughter has his simple act of kindness. The innocent compassion of his daughter actually saved a life. Claire, he said, his voice trembling. I didn't know. How could you? I'm just a stranger crying in the airport. But you saw me, really saw me and chose to care. Saw me and chose to care. Amelia stands up from her chair and hugs Claire tightly. I'm so glad your hair didn't turn gray forever, she whispers. In that moment, the full weight of what happened starts to sink in for all of them. A life was saved not through grand heroic acts, but through the simple decision to see and care. But this is just the beginning of how one moment of compassion will continue to ripple outward. 2 hours later, they're still sitting in the same coffee shop, but everything has changed. The morning rush has passed, leaving them in peaceful quiet. Claire pulls out her sketchbook again, but this time she's drawing something different. What are you drawing now? Amelia asks, peering over Claire's shoulder. Claire turns the sketchbook around to show them. It's a portrait of Amelia sitting between Matthew and Claire, all three of them smiling. But what's striking is how Claire has captured something intangible. The warmth, the connection, the sense of belonging that's formed between them. It's beautiful, Matthew says, and he means it. You've captured something special here. Amelia taught me something important today, Claire says, looking at the little girl. She taught me that kindness doesn't need a reason, and sometimes strangers understand us better than people we've known our whole lives. She closes the sketchbook and looks at both of them. I want you to know you've given me something I thought I'd lost forever. What's that? Matthew asks. Hope, Claire says simply. Faith that there are still good people in the world. The understanding that I'm not as alone as I thought. Matthew pulls out his phone and scrolls through his contacts. Claire, I want to ask you something. My company is looking for an illustrator for our educational software. We're also sponsors of an art collective in Chicago that provides studio space for emerging artists. Claire's eyes widen. Are you serious? Absolutely serious. If you want a fresh start, we could use someone with your talent. And, more importantly, you'd be part of an artist community that supports each other. For the first time since her dad passed, Claire feels something besides despair. She feels possibility. I don't know what to say, she whispers. Say yes, Amelia chimes in. Say yes, so we can be friends and you can teach me how to draw people's feelings. Claire laughs through her tears, her first real laugh in weeks. You already know how to see people's feelings. You just need to learn how to put them on paper. Can you teach me? Amelia asks. I'd love to, Claire replies. And she realizes she really means it. As the hours pass in the airport coffee shop, something beautiful is taking shape. Not just healing, but hope. Not just connection, but transformation. And Claire is about to give them something that symbolizes everything today's taught them about new beginnings. The evening flight to Chicago is finally boarding. The three of them stand in line together, but they're not the same people who started the day. Matthew is different, more open, more present. Claire's cheeks have color again, and her eyes are full of hope. And Amelia, well, Amelia is still the smart little girl she was. But now she's surrounded by adults who truly see her gifts. Once they're settled in their seats on the plane, Claire pulls out her sketchbook. With added time, she turns to the portrait of her dad, the one she couldn't finish that morning. With steady hands and bright eyes, she starts to fill in his eyes. Now I can see them, she says gently. The way he looked when he was proud of me, when he was happy, when he said he loved me. She works quietly while Matthew and Amelia watch. When she's done, the portrait is complete and perfect. Her dad's eyes shine with all the love and pride she remembers but thought she'd lost. Matthew says, looking at the finished drawing, "He'd be so proud of you." Claire replies, "He'd be proud of all of us. He always taught me that the best way to honor those we've lost is to love the ones still here." Amelia looks out the plane window, watching Chicago's lights grow larger below. "Claire, what colors do you see around you now?" Claire considers this seriously. "You know what I think I see? Gold, like sunlight." "Gold is good," Amelia says approvingly. "Gold means new beginnings." As the plane lands in Chicago, Arthur Bell, who's on the same flight, stops by their row. "Today, you've reminded me of the reason why I decided to keep living 30 years ago. You've reminded me that human kindness still holds wonders." He handed Claire his business card. "I run a support group for people dealing with grief. If you need someone who gets you, we meet every Thursday evening." Claire accepted the card gratefully. "Thank you for everything you said today. You've saved my life." "No, sweetheart," Arthur said with a gentle smile. Everyone helped save each other. As their evening flight finally took off to Chicago, the three souls had changed, not just heading to a new city, but to a completely new chapter in their lives. But the real miracle of this story was yet to be revealed. 6 months later, Matthew was sitting in his office when his assistant called. "Mr. Lane, Claire is here for your 3-hour meeting. You, Mr. Lane, Claire is here for your meeting. Please show her in," Matthew said with a smile. Claire walked into his office, but she was different. She was lively, confident, and carrying her latest portfolio. Over the past 6 months, she hadn't just worked with Matthew's company, but had become a standout artist at the co-op he had told her about. "How's the new children's book coming along?" Matthew asked. "Better than I ever imagined," Claire said, opening her folder. "I want to show you the latest illustrations. They're beautiful. Kids from all kinds of backgrounds, showing all sorts of emotions, all treated with respect and understanding." Clearly, Claire's talent for seeing and depicting human emotions had found the perfect way to shine. "These are amazing. Claire, the kids in our focus groups absolutely love them. You've got a real gift for teaching," Claire said. "Amelia has helped me understand how kids really see emotions. She's got such deep insights." "Speaking of Amelia, she has something for you." As if on cue, Amelia burst into the office carrying a wrapped package. "Claire, I finished it," she said excitedly. Claire unwrapped the package and saw a drawing that took her breath away. It was a picture of the three of them on that day at the airport, but drawn from Amelia's perspective with vibrant colors surrounding each person. Claire's figure was surrounded by gray, shifting to yellow. Matthew had blue turning to green and yellow, and Amelia herself was surrounded by every color of the rainbow. "Amelia, this is extraordinary. I wanted to show you what that day looked like from inside me," Amelia explained. "See how the colors change as we became friends." Claire felt grateful tears in her eyes. "Can I tell you both something?" They nodded. "That day at the airport, I had given up on everything. I thought my story was over, but you showed me that sometimes our stories are just beginning in ways we never expected. Just 6 months was all it took for 3 broken lives to become a beautiful picture of healing and hope." But as they reunited, it was clear that the ripples from that Tuesday morning had spread far beyond what any of them could have imagined. That Thursday evening, Claire walked into the community center where Arthur's grief support group met. She had been attending for 4 months now, and tonight, she was bringing someone special. "Everyone, I want you to meet my friend Matthew," Claire said as they walked in. The circle of chairs. Matthew looked nervous but determined. "Hello, everyone. I lost my wife 2 years ago, and I think I'm finally ready to talk about it." Arthur, who led the group, smiled warmly. "Welcome, Matthew. We're glad you're here." As the group shared their stories, Matthew found himself opening up in ways he never thought possible. He talked about Sarah, about his fear of showing weakness to Amelia, and how a chance encounter at the airport taught him that healing doesn't mean forgetting. After the meeting, as people were saying goodbye, A young woman approached Claire. "Excuse me," she said shyly. "I heard you talking about being an illustrator. I was wondering, my little brother passed away 6 months ago, and I've been trying to draw a picture of him, but it just doesn't feel right. Could you help me?" Claire looked at this grieving sister and saw herself 6 months ago. "Of course," she said without hesitation. "What's your name, Jessica? Jessica. Let me tell you something. 6 months ago, I couldn't finish a drawing of my dad either, but I learned that sometimes we need to heal our hearts before our hands can work." "How do you heal your heart?" Jessica asked. Claire looked around the room, at Arthur, at Matthew, and at everyone who had shared their stories that night. You let people help carry the burden. You discover you're not alone. And you learn that love doesn't end when someone dies. It just changes shape. But the deepest realization was yet to come. As Claire witnessed newcomers finding healing through the kindness that had saved her, she began to understand the true math of compassion, how one act of love multiplies exponentially. A year after that Tuesday morning at O'Hare Airport, Matthew, Claire, and Amelia were back at the airport, but this time heading together to a conference where Claire would speak about art therapy for grieving children. As they waited for their flight, Amelia noticed a teenage boy sitting alone, clearly upset about something. "Dad," she whispered, "he's got dark blue around him. Dark blue with a bit of red. What does that mean?" Claire asked. "Angry. Sad," Amelia explained. "Like when you're mad at the world because you're hurting?" Without hesitation, Claire stood up and walked over to the teenage boy. Matthew and Amelia watched. She sat down next to him and simply asked, "Are you okay?" The boy looked up, surprised that a stranger cared enough to ask. And just like that Tuesday morning a year ago, a conversation began that could change everything. Matthew turned to his daughter. "You know, Sweetie Mom thinks you started something." "What do you mean, I mean?" "I think you taught us that the world needs more people to stop when they see someone hurting, more people to offer cookies to strangers, more people to believe that kindness is never wasted." Amelia smiled. "Maybe everyone could learn to see colors like I do." "Maybe they could." Matthew agreed. "Maybe they just need someone to show them how." As they watched Claire talk to the teenager, they saw his posture start to change. His shoulders relaxed a bit. He wasn't alone with his pain anymore. "Dad," Amelia said thoughtfully, "do you think Mom would be proud of us?" Matthew felt that familiar tightness in his chest. But this time, it wasn't from avoiding the pain. It was from embracing the love that still exists. "I think she'd be incredibly proud," he said. "I think she'd be thrilled to know you helped save Claire's life. And I think she'd be thrilled to know Claire helped save yours." "How did Claire save your life?" Matthew thought carefully about this. "She reminded me that feeling everything is normal, that being sad doesn't make you weak, and showing emotions doesn't make you a bad dad. She helped me remember that the best way to honor Mom is to love myself fully. All of us, including those who miss her." Amelia hugged her dad tightly. "I love you. I love you too. So much. Sweetie." Their flight was called, and as they boarded the plane, Matthew reflected on how much their lives had changed. Claire had become part of their family. She joined them for dinner twice a week, helped Amelia with art projects, and became someone Matthew could talk to about the challenges of single parenting. But more than that, she helped both of them learn that healing isn't something you do alone. It's something you do in community with people who see your pain and choose to sit with you through it. This story wasn't just a confession, it was a quiet storm of truth, vulnerability, and strength. In every line, we heard not just words, but the weight of a soul trying to be seen, trying to be heard in a world that too often looks away. And yet, through all the heartbreak, what shone through was courage, the kind that doesn't shout, but stands its ground, the kind that chooses honesty over silence. So let's not turn the page and forget. Let's honor the bravery it took to speak up. If you felt something pain, empathy, or even just the urge to reach out, then don't let that feeling fade. Leave a comment. Send love. Let them know their voice mattered. And to the one who shared this piece of their heart, keep going. Keep speaking. Your story is more than a moment. It's a movement waiting to grow. If this touched something in you, you're in the right place. Subscribe to Touching Tales Hub, where stories heal, connect, and remind us that we're never alone.